With the election of Ronald Reagan in 1981, the bulk of the 80s saw an increase of Christian conservative and right-wing extremism, and with it, the rise of religious fanatics going on contemporary witch hunts to end the spread of Satanism through pop culture. Today, on Screen to Screen, we take a historical look back at the Satanic Panic that swept the nation during the Reagan era and the conspiracies that arose from it. But first, don't forget to subscribe to The Graveyard Shift for even more creepy content, and let us know in the comments what real stories you want to learn about next. The Satanic Panic was a moral panic consisting of over 12,000 substantiated cases of satanic ritual abuse starting in the United States in the 1980s, spreading throughout many parts of the world in the late 1990s, and persisting today. The panic originated in 1980 with the publication of Michelle Remembers, a book co-written by Canadian psychiatrist Lawrence Pastor and his patient and future wife, Michelle Smith, which used the discredited practice of recovered memory therapy to make sweeping, lurid claims about satanic ritual abuse involving Smith. Following the book's release, reports of both physical and sexual abuse of people by occults or during satanic rituals began to rise throughout much of the United States. In its most extreme form, allegations involve a conspiracy of a global satanic cult that includes the wealthy and powerful world elite, in which children are abducted or bred for human sacrifices, pornography, and prostitution. Nearly every aspect of the ritual abuse breathed controversy, including its definition, the source of the allegations and proof thereof, testimonies of alleged victims, and court cases involving the allegations and criminal investigations. Initial interest arose via the publicity campaign for Pastor's 1980 book, Michelle Remembers, and it was sustained and popularized throughout the decade by coverage of the McMartin Preschool trial. Testimonials, symptom lists, rumors, and techniques to investigate or uncover memories of satanic ritual abuse, or simply SRA, were disseminated through professional, popular, and religious conferences, as well as through talk shows, further spreading the moral panic throughout the United States and beyond. In some cases, allegations resulted in criminal trials with varying results. After 7 years in court, the McMartin trial resulted in no convictions for any of the accused, while other cases resulted in lengthy sentences, some of which were later reversed. Scholarly interest in the topic slowly built, eventually resulting in the conclusion that the phenomenon was a moral panic which involved hundreds of accusations that devil-worshipping pedophiles were operating America's white middle-class suburban daycare centers. The satanic ritual abuse panic repeated many of the features of historical moral panics and conspiracy theories, such as the blood libel against Jews by Apion in the 30s CE and the witch hunts in the 16th and 17th centuries. Torture and imprisonment were common uses by authority figures to coerce confessions from alleged Satanists, confessions that were later used to justify their executions. Records of these older allegations were linked by contemporary proponents in an effort to demonstrate that modern satanic cults were part of an ancient conspiracy of evil, though ultimately no evidence of devil-worshipping cults existed in Europe at any time in its history. A more immediate precedent of the context of satanic ritual abuse in the United States was McCarthyism in the 1950s. The underpinnings for the contemporary moral panic were found in a rise of 5 factors in the years leading up to the 1980s: the establishment of fundamentalist Christianity and the founding and political activism of the religious organization known as the Moral Majority, the rise of the anti-cult movement which accused abusive cults of kidnapping and brainwashing children, the appearance of the Church of Satan and other explicitly Satanist groups which added a kernel of truth to the conspiracies, the development of the social work or child protection field and its struggle to recognize children's sexual abuse as a social problem and serious crime, and the popularization of post-traumatic stress disorder, repressed memory, and the corresponding survivor movement. The now discredited book by Michelle Smith and her husband Lawrence Pastor was written in the form of an autobiography, presenting the first modern claim that child abuse was linked to satanic rituals. At the time, Michelle Remembers provided the model for numerous allegations of SRA that ensued later in the same decade. On the basis of the book's success, Pastor developed a high media profile, giving lectures and training on satanic ritual abuse to law enforcement. and had acted as a consultant on more than 1,000 SRA cases, including the McMartin Preschool trial. Michelle Remembers, along with other accounts portrayed as survivor stories, are suspected to have influenced later allegations of Satanism, and the book has been suggested as a casual factor in the later epidemic of SRA allegations. In 1983, charges were laid in the McMartin Preschool trial, a major case in California involving hundreds of acts of sexual abuse against children at a family-led daycare, which received attention throughout the United States and contained allegations of satanic ritual abuse. The case caused tremendous polarization in how to interpret the available evidence. Shortly afterward, more than 100 preschools across the country became the object of a similar sensationalist allegation, which were eagerly and uncritically reported by the press. Throughout the McMartin trial, media coverage of the defendants were unrelentingly negative, focusing only on statements by the prosecution. Michelle Smith and other alleged survivors met with parents involved in the trial, and it is believed that they influenced testimony against the accused. In 1985, anti-occult campaigner Patricia Pulling joined forces with psychiatrist Thomas Radecki, director of the National Coalition on Television Violence, to create BADD, or Bothered by Dungeons and Dragons. Pulling the BADD saw general role-playing games and Dungeons & Dragons specifically as satanic cult recruitment tools, inducing youth to suicide, murder, and Satanism. Other alleged recruitment tools included heavy metal music, educators, child care centers, and television. This information was shared at policing and public awareness seminars on crime and the occult, sometimes by active police officers. None of these allegations held up in analysis or in court. In fact, analysis on youth suicide over the period in question found that role-playing game players actually had a much lower rate of suicide than the average. By the 1980s, therapists and patients who believed someone had suffered from SRA would suggest solutions that included Christian psychotherapy, exorcism, and support groups whose members self-identified as anti-satanic warriors. Federal funding was increased for research on child abuse, with large portions being provided to conferences supporting the idea of SRA, adding a veneer to respectability to the idea, as well as offering an opportunity for prosecutors to exchange ideas on how to best secure convictions, with tactics including the destruction of notes, refusing to tape interviews with children, and destroying or refusing to share evidence with the defense. Had proof been found, satanic ritual abuse would have represented the first occasion where an organized and secret criminal activity had been discovered by mental health professionals. In 1987, American journalist Geraldo Rivera produced a national television special on the alleged secret cults, claiming that an estimated over 1 million Satanists in the United States are linked in a highly organized, secretive network. Tapings of this and similar talk show episodes were subsequently used by religious fundamentalists, psychotherapists, and social workers, and police to promote the idea that the conspiracy of satanic cults existed and that these cults were committing serious crimes. Initial accusations of satanic ritual abuse were made in the context of the rising political power of conservative Christianity within the United States, and religious fundamentalists enthusiastically promoted rumors of SRA. Psychotherapists who were actively Christian advocated for the diagnosis of dissociative identity disorder. Soon after, accounts similar to Michelle Remembers began to appear, with some therapists believing the alter egos of their patients were the result of demonic possession. Protestantism was instrumental in starting, spreading, and maintaining rumors through sermons about the dangers of SRA, lectures by purported experts, and prayer sessions. Law enforcement trainers, many of whom held devout religious beliefs, became strong promoters of the claims and self-described experts on the topic. As the explanations for SRA were distanced from evangelical Christianity and associated survivor groups, the motivations ascribed to purported Satanists shifted from combating a religious nemesis to mind control and abuse as an end to itself. As is the case with most media crazes, Hollywood was quick to jump on the bandwagon and exploit the satanic panic hysteria through satire and horror films. One such film, 1986's Trick or Treat, which centers around a teenager who is haunted by the ghost of his rock hero, satirically casts Ozzy Osbourne as a televangelist decrying the evils of heavy metal music and more or less pokes fun at the notion that rock and roll music causes Satanism. Another film called Mazes and Monsters, a 1982 made-for-TV drama starring the then 26-year-old Tom Hanks in his first leading role, follows a group of college students interested in Dungeons & Dragons-style role-playing games. It touches on the claim that the playing of RPG games could relate to psychological problems like schizophrenia. The film was adapted from the 1981 novel with the same name by Rona Jaffe, who had based her story on inaccurate newspaper stories about the disappearance of a Michigan State University student in 1979. Early media accounts had overemphasized the student's participation in fantasy role-playing, often speculating that Dungeons & Dragons played a major factor in his disappearance. Media coverage of SRA began to turn negative by 1987, and the panic ended between 1992 and 1995. By 2003, allegations of ritual abuse were met with great skepticism, and belief in SRA was no longer considered mainstream in professional circles. Reasons for the collapse of the phenomenon include the collapse of criminal prosecution against alleged abusers, a growing number of scholars, officials, and reporters questioning the reality of the accusations, and a variety of successful lawsuits against mental health professionals. Some feminist critics of SRA diagnosis maintain that, in the course of attempting to purge society of evil, the panic of the 1980s and 90s obscured real child abuse issues. In England, the SRA panic diverted resources and attention from proven abuse cases, resulting in a hierarchy of abuse in which SRA was the most serious form, with physical and sexual abuse being minimized and marginalized. In addition, as criticism of SRA investigation increased, the focus by social workers on SRA resulted in a large loss of credibility to the profession. Some people still believe today that there is a credence to allegations of satanic ritual abuse and continue to discuss the topic today. Publications by American conspiracy theorist Cathy O'Brien claiming SRA was the result of government programs to produce Manchurian candidate-style mind control in young children were picked up by other conspiracy theorists, linking belief in SRA with claims of government conspiracies. Of the more than 12,000 documented accusations nationwide, investigating police were not able to substantiate any allegations of organized cult abuse. Although dust from the Satanic Panic has all but settled, the conspiracies will live on in infamy, with many modern believers looking to QAnon to support the absurdity of their theories. And there you have it, the history of the Satanic Panic and how it lives on today. Can you think of any other exploitation films that cashed in on this movement? Do you know anyone personally who still believes? And as always, be sure to remember to like and subscribe to The Graveyard Shift for all your horror news, and drop a comment to let us know what screams you want to make it to the big screen. Only on Scream to Screen.